at 02:15 a.m. October 6, 2025, Russian-occupied Crimea. 200 Ukrainian FPV drones are hurtling towards the Feodosia oil depot. Simultaneously, 3 FP-5 Flamingo missiles wait for the command to fire. This is a large-scale attack by Ukraine aimed directly at Crimea's largest oil depot. And very soon, Russia's $5 billion will become a blazing inferno for 3 nights straight. The drones are skimming just 50 feet above the earth. These are AN-196 Lu-T, each a 22-pound silent assassin slicing through the air at 100 miles per hour. At the heart of this storm, inside a heavily armored Kozak-2 vehicle, a Ukrainian Special Forces team watches it all unfold. Through their control screens, the target glows in the night, the Feodosia oil depot. This is the pumping heart of Russia's 18th Combined Arms Army, holding 550 million pounds of fuel. Taking it out doesn't just disrupt logistics, it paralyzes an entire section of the front. But after losing multiple depots in fiery explosions, the Russians have learned a brutal lesson. They have turned Feodosia into a fortress. It is their most heavily guarded fuel asset in Crimea, and it is on high alert. That fortress is visualized on the tactical map as a brilliant red overlay. The pulsing sweep of a Nebo-M radar with a 370-mile reach. The overlapping kill zones of Panzer S-1 missile batteries ready to swat anything from the sky. And above it all, a Bereave A-50 AWACS circles at 33,000 feet, a god in the sky. It is an iron shield, a wall of death. So how could Ukraine possibly break through that terrifying wall of defense? These brave warriors will quickly answer that question brilliantly. At 01:47 a.m., Operation Shadow Blaze begins. From hidden positions, 200 Lu-T drones lift into the night. Their flight path is a masterclass in stealth, 60 miles per hour, just 50 feet above the black water, using the Earth's curvature as a shield to remain invisible to enemy radar. For 38 minutes, there is only the hum of electric motors and the sound of the wind over the Black Sea. They are ghosts. But then, the plan becomes clear. On the tactical map, their trajectory is not aimed at the Feodosia oil depot. They are making a suicidal run directly towards the Hornet's Nest, the heavily defended Russian airfields at Saki and Kacha. This is not a mistake, it is the opening move in a deadly chess match. The purpose of this 200 drone swarm is not to destroy the airfields. Their real mission is to die. They are bait. A threat so large, so audacious that the Russian commanders have no choice but to activate their most powerful air defense systems. The very systems that are usually kept quiet to avoid detection. The success of the entire multi-million-dollar missile strike depends on this opening move. If the Russians take the bait, their radar systems will light up the sky, giving Ukraine a perfect real-time map for the kill shot. If they don't, the Flamingo missiles are flying blind. The drones are now just minutes away from Russian airspace. Will the Russians take the bait? At 02:25 a.m., a Russian operator staring at his Nebo-M radar screen goes rigid. The ghosts on the water are no longer ghosts. His screen lights up like a Christmas tree as over 160 contacts scream towards Saki and Kacha. The command is given, engage. The air fills with the roar of rocket motors as the Panzer S-1 batteries open fire. Their multi-million-dollar missiles tear through the night, slamming into the cheap Ukrainian drones. In less than 2 minutes, 40 drones disappear in puffs of smoke and shrapnel. On the Russian command net, it's a moment of celebration. They believe they are successfully repelling a massive, unsophisticated attack. But 155 miles away in the Ukrainian command vehicle, it is a moment of triumph, because the Russians have just given them everything they wanted. As the Panzer systems fired, they were forced to go to maximum power to track and engage the swarm. In doing so, they screamed their precise frequencies and GPS locations across the electromagnetic spectrum. The surviving drones in the swarm, acting as sensors, relayed this priceless data back to Ukrainian intelligence. It was the electronic equivalent of a confession. And in the midst of this electronic chaos, Ukraine makes another move. From its hidden position, the Kozak-2 vehicle launches 10 of its own FPV drones. Their target? A supplementary oil pipeline feeding the main depot. A secondary explosion lights up the horizon, adding another layer of confusion for the scrambling Russian defenders. The board is now set. Ukraine has its perfect map. Russia has drawn first blood, but in their moment of victory, they have exposed their entire defensive posture. The element of surprise is gone, and the entire Crimean Peninsula is now on high alert. The Russians are now hunting for the real threat, and the Flamingo missiles haven't even launched yet. At 02:28 a.m., with the map complete, Ukraine moves from intelligence gathering to electronic assault. The Russians believe they are winning the physical battle, shooting down drones one by one. But they are about to lose the electronic one. The surviving 120 drones in the swarm now have a new mission. Using the frequencies captured just moments before, they stop acting as simple bait and become sophisticated jammers. This isn't a brute force blast of static, it's a surgical strike. The 3.6 decibels of targeted electronic noise is just enough to turn the Russian Panzer radar screens into a blizzard of digital snow. The operators can hear the hum of their equipment, but their eyes on the sky are now effectively blind. And with the frontline defenses blinded, Ukraine makes its boldest move yet. From a separate hidden launch site, a single FP-5 Flamingo missile roars to life. It climbs to an altitude of 16,000 feet, a high, easily detectable trajectory, and begins its 155-mile journey to Crimea. Everything about this launch is designed to be seen, to be tracked, and to look like the main event. But it's a phantom. The missile's warhead is hollow. This is the Judas Goat, a missile sent to lead Russia's most valuable air defense assets to the slaughter. Ukraine is sacrificing a pawn to force the Russian queen out into the open. The decoy is now screaming towards Crimea. The Panzer operators on the ground are useless. A multi-million-dollar missile is in the air, and the Russians have to make a choice: trust their failing sensors or do nothing. What they do next is exactly what Ukraine is counting on. At 02:31 a.m., high above the electronic storm at 33,000 feet, the Russian god in the sky sees everything. The Bereev A-50 AWACS is immune to the low-altitude jamming that has blinded the ground crews. Its powerful radar cuts through the chaos and locks onto the lone Flamingo missile. The data is relayed instantly to an S-400 battery far from the frontline chaos. 15 seconds later, a 48N6 missile launches, climbing at Mach 7. The decoy Flamingo disintegrates in a silent flash of light miles above the Crimean coast. But inside the Ukrainian command vehicle, the atmosphere turns ice cold. For the Russians, this is a successful interception. For the Ukrainians, it's a nightmare. They didn't just shoot down a missile, they have just confirmed that their entire air defense network is linked, awake, and hunting. The Russians now know with absolute certainty that a ballistic missile attack is in progress. The element of surprise is gone. Every Russian operator is now staring at their screen, waiting for the next launch. This creates an impossible choice for the Ukrainian command team. Abort the mission, and the sacrifice of over 80 drones and a decoy missile was for nothing. Or launch their real missiles directly into the teeth of a fully awakened dragon. They have less than 20 seconds to decide. At 2:32 a.m., the command is given launch. They don't launch one missile. They launch two. This was the final hidden genius of Operation Shadowblaze. From a second launch site, two FP-5 Flamingo missiles roar into the sky, their paths separated by just 20 seconds. This isn't just sending more weapons, it's creating an unsolvable mathematical problem for the Russian defenders. An S-400 system that has just fired and reacquired a target is now faced with two new high-speed threats appearing on slightly different trajectories, from a slightly different location. It's a timing attack designed to exploit the precious seconds it takes for the system to recalculate a firing solution. But as the panicked Russian operators scramble to engage the two new missiles, the entire battlefield erupts. This is the final suicidal act of the drone swarm. The remaining 120 drones stop their jamming pattern and surge forward, creating a wall of electronic noise and physical bodies directly between the S-400 radar and the incoming Flamingos. Simultaneously, the 10 FPV drones launched from the Kozak-2, their pipeline mission complete, now dive directly towards the S-400 radar dish itself. They become kamikaze shields designed to draw fire and create absolute chaos on the ground. The Russian system is overwhelmed. It's trying to track two missiles through a blizzard of jamming while also defending itself from a diving pack of suicide drones. In desperation, it fires, but it's a blind, panicked shot. A single missile streaks into the sky, chasing an ALE-50 decoy released by one of the flamingos, and detonates harmlessly. All of Russia's shields are now broken, the two Angels of Death are unopposed, and their target is just 68 seconds away. At 02:34 a.m., the final command from Kiev has been given. Now it is only a matter of physics. The two FP-5 Flamingo missiles, each a 13,000-pound Angel of Death, glide on their final approach. Their onboard GPS systems are locked, making microscopic corrections. The first missile's hardened nose cone punches through the quarter-inch steel roof of the primary storage tank. Precisely 1.3 seconds later, the second missile pierces a neighboring tank. For a split second, there are two perfect dark holes. Then, the world turns white. But this wasn't just an explosion. It was a calculated lesson in demolition. The missiles didn't detonate on impact. For 1.1 seconds, they traveled deep into the heart of the massive fuel tanks. That tiny delay was the key to everything, designed to cook the depot from the inside out. When the 2,500-pound warheads finally ignite, the blast wave is trapped. It has nowhere to go. It reflects off the concrete and steel walls, multiplying its destructive force in a vicious feedback loop. The blast instantly vaporizes hundreds of thousands of pounds of fuel, creating a fireball that reaches 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the massive support columns not just bent, but into dust. The steel tanks don't just rupture, they are unzipped from the inside out like a tin can. And then, physics reveals the final brutal layer of the plan. A tsunami of burning fuel erupts from the shattered tanks, pouring across the depot. It finds the secondary pipeline that was deliberately ruptured by the FPV drones an hour earlier. What was a small, localized fire now becomes a highway for hell itself, carrying the Inferno to a second set of tanks to the north, guaranteeing the entire facility will burn for days. The initial shockwave had barely settled before the true chaos began. Sirens screamed across Feodosia as Russian Spetsnaz and FSB units swarmed the area, creating a desperate perimeter. The official statement from Moscow was swift and predictable. Their heroic air defenses had intercepted 251 drones and one Flamingo missile. But the Inferno, visible from 60 miles away, told a different story. Within hours, satellite imagery confirmed the catastrophic truth. Two primary tank farms were gone, and with them 25% of the 18th Army's nearby ammunition reserves, which had cooked off in the blaze. The Russian government could lie to the world, but they couldn't lie to the pictures. The fire in Feodosia was just the beginning. The real damage was a strategic cancer that began to spread across the entire southern front. First, the tanks of the 18th Army began to run dry, their offensive operations grinding to a halt. Then, the logistics froze as supply convoys were rerouted, creating a massive bottleneck. Within days, the panic rippled outwards to the civilian population as 14% of Crimea's gas stations reported being completely empty. For 72 hours, as chaos gripped the Russian command, Ukraine pressed its advantage on 8 separate fronts. Paranoia spread through the ranks as Russian commanders, suddenly starved of fuel and direction, were forced to make impossible decisions. And so, with a single, brilliant operation, Ukraine had turned a few cheap drones and 3 missiles into a weapon of strategic paralysis. Russia had spent tens of millions on its Pantsir systems to protect a multi-billion-dollar asset. Ukraine spent a fraction of that to burn it all to the ground. It proved that in modern warfare, the winner isn't the one with the most expensive weapons. It's the one who uses them with the most brutal intelligence.